Dan, my friend, which part of the world are you joining us from? Because we have no idea.
So I am joining you from Roatan.
Okay, you are in your island life.
I am on my island life. I love it here. I did make sure to actually come to the co-working space today. That way, if the power goes out as they're doing road construction, we don't drop off midstream. So I thought that was kind of prudent to go to the place that has a backup generator.
Let's have a chat because there is no drama whatsoever in the open source community, right?
No, there's absolutely none. Open source is amazing, and it's super sustainable for everybody. Nobody is at all upset that their builds were delayed by 1.5 seconds when we went to run the unit tests.
So like Dan, me, and a lot of us, like we have had these, side conversations whenever we get together at conferences as well as online. So let's break it down a little bit here. So open source is wonderful, but we sometimes forget that these are real people putting in real time.
Yep.
And when you have enterprises, big enterprises using open source software and not supporting it and yet being demanding, that's never nice. So tell us a little bit about what happened with Mock.
Yeah, so Mock, I'd say it's probably, in the top 5 of dependencies that people have. And there's been a lot of work that has gone into Mock over the years. I know that Daniel Casalino really wanted to do some fundamental changes to the library, just because the language itself has changed so much since Mock 1.0, right? And there are a lot of things that you couldn't do back then that you can do today, the things that the language supports, programming paradigms that people follow today that didn't really exist 10 years ago. And that takes a lot of time to do a full rebuild like that and bring that kind of library up to par. And the sad thing is, even though you have hundreds of millions of downloads for Mock, I think Daniel had maybe 5 GitHub sponsors, and they were other open source maintainers, which that's just not sustainable. I would say I've been very fortunate in some ways that I've been more successful than most people in the .NET space with GitHub sponsors. But that actually doesn't even bring in enough money every month to pay my rent in Honduras, which is laughable in and of itself, right? If I can't even say that it can pay my rent in a third world country, open source is not sustainable. And there has to be some things that need to change. And I would say that kind of brings me to Prism, right? One of my favorites. Every open source maintainer loves this one, by the way. We always get the issue opened. Is this library dead?
Like the 2 weeks that you're on vacation, is it dead already?
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, right? It's been about 2 years, I believe, since we released Prism 8.1. It has been a hot minute for sure. But most of that time I've been working on Prism MAUI, trying to get Prism MAUI to where it needs to be. And what people don't realize is that's not something that takes a couple of hours. That's easily over 1,000 hours of work that I've put in my spare time on top of, all of the hours that I'm doing my day job to pay bills, right?
But Alan's right. I mean, it's gotten you a cool hat.
Yeah.
Our good friend Isaac was talking about it the other day. Like, let's just fill up our bucket of karma because that's going to help you pay rent. It's difficult.
Yeah. It doesn't pay my dive bill either here. But Yeah, I got the cool hat. This was something actually I got in Bangkok about a month ago. So that was quite fun.
Yeah, you're all over the place. I always have to ask, like, which part of the world are you in? So anyway, so what Mark did was try to monetize things a little bit, right? And that made the community very angry. Some parts of the community.
They were trying to, like, what Daniel Castellano really was trying to do was to bring awareness to the fact that the library wasn't sustainable, that people, you know, he really needed people to start sponsoring the project and helping the project. And he tried to do that in a way that he thought made sense. I think most people go, hey, it's probably not a great idea. But, you know, I still applaud him for trying to think outside the box and, you know, trying to innovate, trying to find a new way. How can we reach people? How can we make open source sustainable? There's a very real sense that, you know, a lot of maintainers like Daniel Castellano really would like to see a creator type space, kind of like you have with YouTube or Instagram, you know, and how can we have that in open source software? And I don't know that there's a good answer to that. I definitely haven't seen it. But, you know, something does need to be done. People need to kind of recognize that, you know, you have dependencies that are critical to your business infrastructure. And the people that wanted to say, well, we're going to rip mock out, we're going to put something else in. Good luck with that. If you have a big test suite, that could take you a lot of work. You know, it's like, what really makes more sense to go, you know what, Daniel, here's $50 to support the project, or to spend thousands of dollars in labor as you rewrite all your tests. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you said it right. Like, we don't have all the answers. I don't think any one person does. But as a community, as you know, the tech industry, we just need to evolve. We need to understand where our dependencies are, where people's time and effort are going. So yeah, well said. Now, you mentioned Prism, and that is a small thing that some people like, or a lot of people like.
Yeah.
So what's happening on that front? Anything that you have been cooking?
Yeah, and I do want to actually show the beginnings of the demo that, or can give you a sneak preview, I should say, of the demo that if you're at DevUp, you'll actually see working.
Okay. You got a couple of days.
Got a couple of days. But yeah, I have some bits on my machine that I'll do a sneak preview in a little bit. So there is a Prism 9 preview that is about to release very, very soon. And it's quite exciting that you know, some of the changes that we've made. It took me about 6 years, but I finally did convince Brian of the need to add an async delegate command. So for anybody who has been wondering where that is, that will be in Prism 9. There's, you know, more, very gradually I'm getting Brian to add some things that have been needed. You know, we balance each other out for sure. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, let's kind of push forward. Let's give people new ways of writing less code and doing things in a little bit nicer way. And Brian's like, I just don't want to add more APIs. Like, convince me of the need. So it works out well. Right?
This is our good friend Brian Lagunas that we're talking about. Yep.
So,
all right.
Yeah. And so one thing I will, I guess, share as well is Prism 9. If you're paying attention to the Prism repo, you may have seen a PR merge this morning, and that was a change to the Prism license. So,
do you want to show this? Do you want to pull up your browser, or you just want to talk through it for now?
Let's just talk about it for a second.
Yep.
So the license, the terms of the license are pretty simple. We'll be putting more information out there very soon. I apologize for not having all of the details for people. Brian was on vacation. I've been on vacation. And it's like every time I'm on vacation, he's ready. Every time I'm ready, he's on vacation. So we're thinking probably the week after now. So not this coming week, but the week after, we'll finally be able to finalize everything and get the information out. But Prism 9 will be going dual license. It will remain under the MIT license for everybody that is under $1 million. If you're using it academically, if you're, say working at the Red Cross, it will remain free, right? But the reality is Prism is also running very, very important software at very large companies. It's at the heart of 911 software. It's at the heart of software that large brokerages are using to make billions of dollars on the stock market. It's running hospital system. It's running hospital systems. It's running literally anything you can think of. It's time for companies to start helping make the project sustainable. And so that's kind of where we're at. Brian and I have tried the creator model for 4 or 5 years now, and it's not the solution that's working. It's not the solution that we had all hoped it would be.
No, I think that's a good cutting off point to say, it's a dual license. It's this or that. Choose who you are as the user.
Yeah. So and there's a bit of an honor system to this, right? Can you lie about it? Sure. Right? I mean, we're not going to go and scan every single person. We're not going to go and add software to check you, right? But at the same time, if you work for a large company, you shouldn't have a problem paying for a developer license to use the software that's saving you a lot of time and effort. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, and so that's Prism. But overall, you've been seeing .NET MAUI kind of grow from its infancy. All of us have people who are old in this room, but
and excited for .NET 8. Really, I am.
A lot of good things happening. I mean, even if you were a skeptic, you should see the community and Microsoft kind of coming together and stabilizing the platform. Yes, there are always, issues. There are always bugs, but they're trying to fix as many things as they can. Good things happening again with .NET 8 that's coming up.
For sure. My day job, obviously, I work as a consultant, so I get to work with a number of companies and look at what they're doing and kind of help them make some assessments about where they need to be and where they need to go. And definitely .NET 6, .NET 7, it was really hard to say that, MAUI was ready for a lot of people. But .NET 8, I'm very optimistic. I think like this is a good jumping off point that with .NET 8, you can really look at doing that migration now.
Right. And like Maddie was showing off some logos. I mean, there are big enterprises with very, very big apps. And these people have, want to do desktop first, and that's fine.
Yep.
So there's a lot more stability. There is a lot more maturity around .NET MAUI. That's appreciated now.
Yep. So.
All right. Anything you want to show? I can bring up your desktop.
Yes.
Visual Studio, but way too small fonts.
I'm working on that. So let's see here. I apologize for the small nature of the Solution Explorer, but one thing I want to point out in here is you'll notice that I have a little MAUI section, I have an UNO section, and I have a WPF app. So you got apps for all three of these in this particular solution, and I've got my view models down here. So this is actually a really, really neat thing that we were looking at for Prism 9 is we wanted to finally be able to bring a story where you have some commonality between the platforms, where things are moved as much as we can into the Prism core to allow you to share that business logic. And, let's say that you're working on a WPF app today. It would be really great in our view to be able to take all those view models, all your services, have them in, this common project that you could share. You can continue to use in your WPF app, but you can look at like, hey, let's maybe migrate over to Uno platform or to Maui. And, now we get that, the support for iOS and for Android and that sort of thing. And so that is kind of where we're going here. Is we've got actually the dialogue, sorry, I don't have that implemented yet, but we do have the dialogues are already implemented and then merged, I should say. And then regions are kind of a work in progress on my machine only. So you can't, even if you're a sponsor, you're not going to get these bits that I'm showing right now with the region stuff. But that is something that is being actively worked on as well. So the idea here is, again, we've got region support on all of the platforms, and let's try to make this a first-class citizen where you can reuse all this.
So the goal is like if you have been using Prism on desktop apps, let's say WPF for years, and now you are at a crossroad, you're trying to see how you want to modernize it, maybe move into .NET MAUI or Uno or anything else. You're saying most of what you have, like view models, are kind of given, but like how are you tackling navigation?
Well, the region support is the way that you navigate within a WPF app. So when you're within like a Xamarin Forms application, and for people that have kind of started to do the early migrations with the Prism previews for MAUI support, you might be used to that page navigation that you get with Xamarin Forms. But you can realistically continue to use regions in a MAUI app the same exact way that you do in a WPF app. So you don't have to have a tab page. You can create a tab bar and have a content view that is a region, and based on what tab you hit, you can swap out the content of your tab bar. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Will it get you everything? No, but there are a lot of options that you do have, and certainly, I think that we're seeing a lot of interesting third-party controls that can get you some of those features, even of like a flyout page, without having a flyout page. So you have a lot of different options available to you.
Cool.
Yeah. But again, I did say we got the async delegate command that is actually available right now. So for everybody who said, hey, I have some async task I want to do, and I don't want to have async void. I've heard you for a long time, and finally got Brian to understand that issue as well. One of the nice things actually with the async delegate command is there is, let's see here, just because I wrote it doesn't mean I can remember everything. There is an is executing property that's on the delegate command. And so by default, it will pay attention to that is executing around the task, and it will prevent duplicate duplicate executions of that command. So you don't have to do anything special to prevent it from firing twice if someone double clicks a button, for instance. That makes sense?
Yep, okay. Yep, makes sense.
So we've tried to make that very, very easy. And, like I said, the big thing is really, what can we do to simplify it? What can we do to maximize your ability to share code across all of the platforms? There is a PR up right now that I'm just waiting on Brian to have time to review. And that one is moving like the navigation parameters from, well, you have navigation parameters in Prism region, in the Prism region's namespace for WPF, and then in navigation for Xamarin Forms and for Maui, and that actually goes into Prism Core, and then it'll be right now the PR is for Prism navigation, but that could potentially change before we merge, obviously. So that again, it's everything that we can. We're trying to move into that core and make it easier to share, easier to build apps and migrate. If you need to, like particularly for people in the desktop world, where you can now say, hey, we've got this app, we want to take everything we have and go to the mobile space. How can we do that as painlessly as possible with the code that we already have? And I feel really good about where Prism 9 is and where it's heading. And so, we're planning tentatively. Everybody always goes, well, when are you going to release? When are you going to release? Well, I don't have an exact date, but you can expect officially the GA release for Prism 9 should be right in that time frame of .NET Conf with .NET 8 releasing. So
makes sense. You said it on the internet. Now you have to stick to it.
Yeah. So that's the plan. Could it change? Yes, it could change. But that's the tentative plan is to try to release stable right around there. And obviously we'll have a preview coming out in September, and then that there could be a follow-up. We'll kind of see about that, but this is what you can definitely expect coming up very, very soon. So
makes sense. Now, remind me, Dan, for .NET MAUI with Prism in particular, on the application startup with the generic host, are you folks doing anything differently in terms of how the Prism dependencies are wired up?
Yeah. So actually, this is one of the exciting things for me, and it took until .NET 8 for Prism to properly support this, and it required some work with the Maui team to get some better support for this. But actually, what you'll notice is if I come in here and I take a look at this app, you'll notice it's just an application. There is no more Prism application. That has completely gone away. This is all of the code I need for my application class.
Awesome.
So very, very simple. You can really just focus on bringing in your resources or anything that you might need to do. Lifecycle wise, you can certainly do just like you would in any other Maui app. We do have this extension. Of course, you can provide the delegate here just to kind of keep it a little bit cleaner. I reference in like a Prism startup and just have it in here. And so you have the Prism app builder and you have all the things that you would expect, right? So I can register my types. I have my iContainer registry. I've got all the extensions for registering my dialog, registering for navigation, etc. Right? I have this on initialized, so we can do whatever we need to here. I can resolve services I need to. This is just a bug I need to resolve in my local branch here. So you'll have to forgive me for that. But this is basically how I would do this with no code. I have no view model at all for my main page. My main page is just this. And with that little bit of code, it'll automatically set view A for me. So I don't have to do anything there. And then I'm in the application. So definitely really excited there. And then I can just say, hey, on app start, here's the URI I want, and it'll go ahead and create the main page. So very
simple. Yeah. And I think this is actually a healthy trend. Like you with the .NET host, you put your everything else away in a separate container, and you just use an extension method. Like, we do the same, like you use Telerik or use Prism. It's just one thing that, all developers have to do just to wire up everything that's needed, and, off you go. It's, keeps your app, startup nice and clean.
And then one thing I'll kind of show is we did change a little bit with the dialog aware interface. So there's this new dialog close listener, which actually gets set by the dialog service itself. So you don't have to do anything with it, but you no longer have any kind of event that could potentially leak memory. And so now I just have this struct that I can just say invoke it to close it. If it's like maybe I have a dialog, it's just like an OK button, I can just say invoke. I can pass a button result if I want to say like, hey, this is what it was. I can pass in some new dialog parameters, or I can do a full result, I believe it was as well. Yeah, I can do the dialog result if I want to be more verbose with everything. So you have some options just to kind of clean up the code, make it kind of work more with where you might want to be in your code or need to be. And then the same thing as well on the dialog service. You have a struct there as well, and the idea with it was kind of to follow that event callback that you see in Blazor, and that way it will accept a multicast delegate, so I can provide it a function that returns a task. I can provide it an action. Maybe I can pass parameters into it, so you have few extra options that you wouldn't get with just like events or a hard-coded API. Like, here's what you have to provide us. So it's a little bit more flexible to kind of meet you with where your code needs to be.
Makes sense. Yeah, this is all very, very exciting things coming up for Prism 9, and you have a couple of days to figure out your squiggly lines in Visual Studio and show us this at DevUpConf. Alan was saying if you do not release a preview by September, it's dead.
Well, I'm pretty sure Shiny Library is dead already, right?
No, boy.
That's what I heard.
All right, so unfortunately we're at time here, Dan.
Not a problem.
We got way too many of our friends all together, but at least we get to hang out. So Dan, thanks for your thoughts on open source. I think it's something we need to talk about more. Nobody has a clear solution, but everybody understands that it needs to be more sustainable. And some of the dual licenses, those are all the steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, it's good chatting with you, and I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. And speaking of next week, Alyssa is here. Can I bring you up, Lisa? Yeah, to screen, so you can say hi to Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Well,
hi.
Next week will be in person. Wait, your camera froze for a second, but now you're back. So, Dan, thank you so much.
My
Go
pleasure.
Enjoy your island life. Go.
I sure will.
Whatever you do on the beach, and we'll see you next week.
I'm definitely not going diving in 10 minutes.
I am just, you're hurting my soul. I haven't been diving in so long. Why are you doing this?
I get to dive with these guys. It's great.
Have fun.
All right, Dan. We'll let you go. Thank you.